Thanks, Emma. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land upon which we meet today and pay my respects to elders past, present and future. It's particularly wonderful to be here today to talk about customers and community. Recently, SIRA held a symposium where we brought together 40 to 50 leaders from different sectors with different perspectives to talk about customer centricity. So why do we do this? Surely we know that customer centricity is really important. We wanted to learn, we wanted to gain some insights from others and commence a discussion to define customer centricity for the personal injury sector, recognizing its uniqueness with a view to improving outcomes. So in this brief presentation today, I will draw from the symposium discussion, as well as what we know about community and government expectations, all of which is shaping SIRA's perspective of the customer and our approach to regulation. What we took away from the symposium was that being truly customer-centric was about future-proofing. Hearing from customers means we're future-proofing ourselves, the schemes, and the systems. So the George Institute authored a paper, which that beautiful picture is from, Customer Centricity, Where is the Value? For the symposium, we have some copies and I'm happy to provide any for anybody who's interested in them. But it outlined a lot of case studies where successful outcomes were achieved when we truly listened to customers, such as the German Headache Center. We did have a little chuckle at the name, the German Headache Center. The Germans could do that. But it centered around the patient rather than the providers. And what it managed to do was reduce work-related absenteeism from 57% to 11% for the patients that participated in that center. There's a case study in there about how Finland solved the homelessness problem. It was seen as a violation of fundamental rights. So they looked at it from a social perspective, not as individual failure, but collective action. So what that tells us is that customer centricity cannot be siloed. It has to involve everyone, bottom up. And as a regulator, we are considering these implications. So look a little bit about SIRA. Most of you in the room will know a little bit about SIRA. It was established in 2015. We regulate compulsory insurance in New South Wales. We also have a role in levy setting and levy allocation in the dust diseases and the lifetime care schemes. My colleagues Mary and Darren will no doubt give more detailed updates in relation to the schemes at some point over the next couple of days. However, I think it's fair to say that these compulsory schemes have undergone significant legislative changes, market and service delivery reforms over the last couple of years. And although at SIRA we have services such as the CTP Assist Programme, complex care programmes, and engagements with policyholders through mechanisms such as the CTP Price Check, for the most part our interactions with the customers of the schemes we regulate are indirect. It's through insurers or indeed healthcare providers. So I've highlighted in yellow the customers of the personal injury schemes. 5.7 million CTP policyholders, 330,000 employers are covered, protecting 4 million workers, and over 100,000 people annually that are injured at work or on the road seek compensation through these compensation schemes. So this is a pretty significant customer base. Now I don't know which button I managed to press to get that. Thanks, Emma. I'll show you, Beth. So what of the broader landscape that I mentioned earlier? Most of you, again, I'm sure are aware, the recent Royal Commission into the financial services sector brought to light systemic negative customer experiences, such as misrepresentation of products, misrepresentation of services, and lack of transparency and poor claims handling processes. It also highlighted many considerations for regulators, the importance of culture and governance arrangements, understanding customer interactions, and the importance of complaint handling by regulators. Some of the headlines included, the public has a right to know what is going on behind those closed doors. There's been a failure in culture and governance arrangements. Organizations must transform. The customer must be reprioritized to be at the core of every decision, every process, every product, every service, and every outcome. More recently, the APRA Capability Review, which found that while APRA has a strong track record in contributing to a successful financial services market, it needed a change in regulation to ensure that community expectations were met. So regulators such as SIRA are expected to regulate so organizations and institutions not only comply with the law, but do so in a way which is consistent with broader and evolving community expectations. So turning now to government. So government is changing, it's shifting, and quite ambitiously so. So the New South Wales government has customer experience and designing with and for customers as a key priority. A dedicated customer service portfolio has recently been created. We have the first Minister for Customer Service, the first of its kind in Australia. It brings together a data analytics capability, behavioural insights capability, a customer commission capability, and has a clear technology, digital focus, all centred around the customer. SIRA is part of the new customer service department. Customer-centric initiatives such as Service New South Wales, a one-stop shop for transactions and savings, real-time fuel check app, energy switch, and more recently the digital driver's license demonstrate that governments are ready to innovate, be agile, and meet customer expectations. So what about community expectations? Emma sort of talked a little bit to this morning in relation to changing how we perceive the world and how we perceive the world through media and other mediums. But trust is a very, very strong sentiment. The Edelman organisation has been running a global trust barometer for more than 15 years across 27 countries. It makes a distinction between informed public, which is about 25% of the earners, university-educated part of the population, and the general population. And what the 2019 Edelman Trust Barometer for Australia showed that while there was a lift in trust across all categories, no institution made it into the trusting category for the general population, and that includes the government. However, Edelman goes on to describe this new employer-employee contract, as Australia shows one of the highest trust scores in their employers. So the general population trusts that their employers will do the right thing, give them the right information, and there is a belief that employers can increase profits and simultaneously improve their communities. There's an expectation that employers will engage in social and political issues, and a recognition that many problems can't be solved without them. For example, preparing for the future of work. It also means we must work hard at public trust and work on ways to increase trust and in collaboration with employers to prepare for the future. So moving a little closer to home and a bit more specifically about the personal injury schemes, I'd like to spend a couple of minutes acknowledging some of the unique challenges in customer engagement in these schemes. So claimants, over 100,000 of them annually in New South Wales, have no choice but to seek care, support, compensation, income replacement through following a work-related or a road traffic crash injury through the compensation schemes. Unlike other products, and indeed many insurance products, they are not the purchaser of the policy. So they don't choose their insurer, they don't choose their claims manager, and once in the system, choice and control is often limited too. I hope I'm not depressing everybody. A bit. So for many in the system, this leads to a loss of empowerment. I referred earlier to our symposium. We spent quite a bit of time talking about empowerment. Empowerment refers to the process by which people gain control over the factors and the decisions that they make that shape their lives. Empowerment does not mean shifting the burden to the customer. It means the customer participates in deciding how the burden is shared. And in a personal injury context, that burden can shift through the process of recovery. In addition to loss of empowerment, where injustice beliefs exist, and there's quite an extensive body of research that tells us about that in the compensation schemes. If this is left unmitigated, adverse outcomes are likely to follow, particularly on health and recovery. So the impact of perceived injustice can have broader implications too. It can impact the healthcare provider-patient relationship, the insurer case manager-claimant relationship, and the capacity to communicate and problem solve as a team is impaired. So we need customers to be educated and empowered, and when they are, they make better decisions and tend to have better outcomes. So we've been looking to other sectors. While there is much to learn from different jurisdictions and what's happening in our own sector, we've also been looking to other sectors. For example, the healthcare sector. Much has been, inroads have been made in relation to patient-centered or customer-centered care and outcomes. In the SIRA regulated schemes in New South Wales, there's over $1 billion annually spent on healthcare costs. Value-based care provides a new way of thinking about how we organise systems to best serve the customer's needs. We recognise that our healthcare arrangements are not customer-centric, probably better described as best provider-led. We've commenced a review into healthcare arrangements across personal injury schemes in New South Wales, where we're seeing significant increases in costs, significant variation in costs and treatment, and not necessarily seeing the corresponding improvements in outcomes. As that little diagram there shows, or the cartoon, low-value care, while for some might facilitate a good experience, it's not in the best interests of the customer. So how do we respond to the environment that I just described? We're just finalising our next 3-year strategy, and it describes the outcomes we will work towards so that we can achieve outcomes for the people of New South Wales. 4 primary outcomes are at the fore of the strategy. Optimum experience and results for people making claims, affordability of policies for policy purchasers, and affordability of the schemes, and importantly, public trust in SIRA as a regulator so that the community expectations can be met. We want to be here for our customers. We want to do what works, not just what's expected. We welcome diverse thinking. We will look to other sectors. We will make changes proactively. We will be open and fair and take strong action quickly when needed. To do this, we'll use a wide range of levers to ensure the schemes deliver on their outcomes. A couple of small examples where we're working with what I'm referring to our innovation toolbox. Behavioural insight. So how can we create systems that suit how people behave? Some small example where we're working, we have an allied health recovery form that's used across both our schemes. We're currently working with the Behavioural Insights Unit to ensure that that can work best for people in terms of the behaviours and the outcomes that we'd like to see. Design thinking, so co-designing with input from all stakeholders. We recognise that we potentially weren't doing that as well as we could. We've set up a lived experience reference group that has co-chairs from business and the lived experience community, which are helping us co-design the mental health supports that will be available in the system. And finally, public participation. So we don't want to just, here we've designed it, here you go. We want to empower customers in innovation and participation. So in addition to more traditional consultation, for example, recently we've done a consultation on work-related hearing loss. We're also running participant focus groups with behavioural insights to understand their experience and ensure we have their input in a redesigned system. So while we've been building our regulatory framework over the past few years, for example, we have standards of practice for claims in the workers' compensation scheme, insurer business plans across personal injury schemes, and many include factors that speak to insurer conduct with customers. However, as we don't have a direct relationship with many of the customers in the scheme, we recently consulted on a set of proposed customer conduct principles to which we would propose to hold insurers to account through license conditions or other appropriate mechanisms. It's important to say that the insurers in New South Wales are doing fantastically in terms of their interactions with the customers. So it's not a recognition that they weren't, it's a recognition that the community expects the regulator to understand that that is happening and have mechanisms in place to measure that. So these customer service conduct principles have been adapted from the New South Wales Government's customer service commitments, where they were tested against community expectations. So we are proposing to measure these regularly and require regular attestation from insurers on their compliance with these principles. So look, finally, we've established a comprehensive measurement framework as we want to track customer experience and outcomes in a way that allows comparison across the schemes in New South Wales, but particularly with regards to experience, recovery, health and social outcomes. We have many inputs already. The schemes do, we have a scheme performance frameworks across both the schemes that we regulate. We also want insights into empowerment, and measurement will include how we are tracking against the customer conduct principles, as well as how SIRA is trusted as a regulator. As I said, we've many insights already through a variety of sources and are developing an engagement framework to bring the lived experience inside. We recognize that as a regulator, we can do better at engaging with customers who have lived experience, and that in turn will help inform the development and evaluation of programs. We have a comprehensive survey measurement that's going to commence in February 2020. So my final slide, and it's the beautiful graphic that is in the George paper, which I've got here, and I'm happy to give anybody a copy. You can just email me. I think we're going to arrange to have a couple here. But it really just recognises that while we all have a different role to play, if we are all customer-centric and putting the customer at the centre, then that shared purpose will allow for an empowered system, and that in turn increases the likelihood of a system being future-proofed. Thank you.